Hi, Mary. Thanks for making it to Zoom and for saying yes to this conversation. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Michelle. It's good to be here. It's good to see you.
Yeah, I can see you in my mind because we know each other, and it's nice to hear your voice. And we're just having technological issues, so we'll hear your voice, and people will see my face as we move through this conversation.
Okay.
So I would love for you to just share some about who you are and what you do in the world, whatever you want folks to know about who you are. That's my first question.
Okay. Well, my name is Mary Imani, and I am I'm an African American woman, 62 years old, vintage 62. I am a mother of a 29-year-old. I am a grandmother of a 5-year-old. I am a she, her in this world, and I am a partner to a person, a man, to David. I am a yoga teacher of over 30 years. I am a massage therapist of 20 years. I show up in the world most of the time with a lot of zeal and a lot of possibilities, and that's kind of connected to the work that I do in the world. I am I'm in this world kind of consciously fighting to be and experience that intimate interconnectedness that that we all have. So that's kind of how I am in the world and how I like to show up in the world. It's a little more challenging right now, but I did come back to my original intention of showing up with intimate interconnectedness in the world.
Thank you for who you are in the world and for reminding us we are interconnected. And I'm wondering if you can share some about how you're feeling, how your heart is in the midst of COVID-19 and coronavirus. Like what feels present for you in your heart at this time?
Oh, wow. Well, when I first read that question, my heart was kind of feeling neutral. And then when I hear you asking me that question, I want to start screaming. But I won't do that right now. But just so you know that I kind of really want to start screaming. When it first happened, when it first kind of came out, I went, this will pass. Oh, And it wasn't the same as, oh, this is just, So my heart is, I think I laugh sometimes since I'm not screaming. Feels a little heavy. There's some little bits of shimmering around the left ventricle. Not sure exactly. That's just how it feels right now when I sense my heart. There is kind of when I come back to that intimate interconnectedness and recognize that we're all going through this. And it's not just a few certain people that are going through this. Every single person is having to do this, and it kind of makes my heart float a little side to side more equally. But it's having a lot of ebb and flow. Like there are days, like right now with this whole technology thing, my heart felt really kind of like, because that's the only way that we can connect right now. And then it just kind of flows and goes, okay, all right, let's just be okay. Let's be okay with this in the midst of not being okay. So I think to answer that question, Michelle, it would be like my heart feels kind of heavy, and it also feels kind of, there's a shimmer around it, meaning there is something that's still there. It's maybe a string of hope that I hold on to, and teamwork. You might be looking, because I'm looking at my calendar on the wall and it says teamwork on it. So I'm like going, okay, we're all connected as a team. So it's really that freaking middle road. It's that flow. Okay, all right, okay. So that's how my heart is. It just kind of feels like it's floating between my lung on my left side, my lung on my right side, and then as I exhale, they kind of come together and squeeze my heart, saying, you know, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay, but not in that, oh, everything's fine. Everything's fine, because everything isn't fine, but it's going to be okay. That's when the flow part happens. When the ebb part happens, it's more like, ah. So that is how I am.
You know, that's interesting that you mentioned the lungs, and I'm sure you know this, in Chinese medicine, the lungs are connected to grief, right?
Right.
And just how you're describing your heart, the right and left side, your lungs, your right and left lung, the coming together as a reminder that it's going to be okay, but also like the fear that's present there. So it's not surprising to me that you're describing the heart and the lungs, and that you described them in the way you did.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, you know, the body knows. So as you know, the body knows, and is wise, and is probably providing some information to you about how this is sitting with you, and how this pandemic is affecting you.
Yeah, it's and since I'm not a person that sits and watches the news all the time, my David does, enough for like 3 of us, and I have to do everything I can not to throw him out the window. And I realize I can't, because he's too big to throw out the window. And number 2 is that he's kind of helpful to have around sometimes, but I think that I just have to come back to that ebb and flow, and that I believe that that's why my breath work, and when I connect with my heart, and then know that when I exhale, my lungs are kind of gently giving my heart a little massage, and just kind of like pressing them together, going, okay, we're here, we're with you, we're okay. It's crazy, and we're okay. While we're in the crazies, because I would be lying if I said I didn't have the crazies at least 50 times a day. It's like when we have thoughts, all those thoughts, it's like, okay, let's just have a thought, and it's still okay.
Are there ways you are allowing yourself to grieve and process what's happening as this pandemic unfolds?
Ooh, well, there's a lot of tears. There's tears, there's baths. There's been more eating, since I do kind of come from emotional eating background. There has been more food going through me. And there are days when I just feel very frustrated, because that's not really what I want to be doing right now. But there's that habitual pattern of, okay, let's try to fill myself up. And maybe if I fill myself up with more popcorn, or have another glass of wine or cake, not in that order, there is some protein in there somewhere, that everything will, that I can just pretend this isn't like happening, and then it's not really true. So I go back to my altar, and I talk to the ancestors. And this one particular ancestor was kind of shaking her head the other day, and I kind of tuned into her. I don't know exactly if it was my great-great-grandmother. I'm not sure. It was, and she was kind of reminding me that the product of this planet is so messed up. Our Mother Earth is really, really angry. She's got a lot of fire, and we're all responsible for her. And then we all haven't been doing our job very well. And not like pointing her finger at me, but I have a part in this. And if I'm going to keep eating this way by not being kind to myself, I'm going to feel worse. So that, and reminding me that I have other ways of dealing with this other than putting food in my mouth or wine in my mouth, and temporarily taking away the ache, the ebb part of the flow, and just let myself cry. So crying is a ritual, bathing is a ritual. I'm really trying to not fill myself up with unnecessary eating, but also in the last couple of days, trying not to judge myself for having something that I really wasn't hungry for. Because what I'm really, really hungry for, Michelle, is for this to be over and for it just to be a really big, bad nightmare. And it's like, okay, this was just a test to see how we work together. But I'm realizing that's not it. This is not a test. This is not like that thing that used to be on the TV that says, do not attempt to adjust your dial. This is only a test, back in the 60s or 70s when that came on the TV. So I'm just letting the rituals of, my sitting practice, my mantra, my tears, my baths, my walks. I've been walking a lot, I think, walking and using my legs and distancing, and hating having to do that, hating to see who's going to walk into the street first, and wanting that the whole concept of what namaste meant to me when I originally learned namaste, which was I see you, you see me. I there you are walking down the street, you're experiencing this too, I'm experiencing this, we're both experiencing this, so we can both separate and know that and still acknowledge each other. So I've been experimenting with that ritual when I walk down the street a lot. And that kind of brings me back to the heart question, because then that heart feeling is like, okay, they're experiencing this, I'm experiencing this. And that becomes part of my ritual, is walking a lot. I think that is all I have to say about that one.
Yeah.
Even though more could come, but this is not an all-day interview.
Why do you feel like it's important for us to make space to both acknowledge the grief and to actually be in a grieving process in response to this pandemic?
Well, my first hit is like, well, we have to be able to feel it. Because if you can't feel it, you can't heal it. I don't know where I first heard that from, but it was like whoever said it, whatever recycled information this is, of if you can't feel it, you can't hear it. I don't care who said it first. It's just real. So we have to feel the grief. We have to feel the grief that this planet is going through, and what each other may be going through, without knowing exactly what another person is going through. I have to feel it. You have to feel it. We have to feel it. Jasper feels it. It's, and then we have to be able to understand how to, have to feel it and exactly notice, know where it can show up in our body, where it might show up in someone else's body. And I come back to that. It was something, I think that it was a Pema Children meditation a long time ago, which was like, just like me, I'm experiencing this pain and this fear. Just like me, I don't know what the F to do. Just like me, I need to cry all the time. Just like me, I can't walk next to you and you can't walk next to me. So then there's that grief that comes in that doesn't ever really feel like it's fading. And then I kind of have to remember to that little light shimmering around my left ventricle that says, okay, it's okay. And the ancestor's voice of saying, just kind of hang in there. And we have to grieve. we have to grieve. If we don't grieve, it's stagnant, and it doesn't go anywhere, and it might increase disease if we don't grieve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what you just shared reminds me of a teaching that a teacher offered me from one of her teachers. And you probably have heard me say it before. Her teacher talked about when we don't process grief, it gets stuck or stuffed down into our toes.
Oh, yeah.
Which makes it really, right, heavy. And you think about grief piling up in that way, and how that causes disease in the body the way you just named it. And I always, it resonated so deeply when she said that, like when you don't process it, it gets stuffed in your toes, because then you can't move, right? You can't actually physically, energetically, psychically, mentally, spiritually move if the grief just piles up and stays there. And so what you said really resonates. And obviously I believe that too. We need to grieve and make space for it to heal. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think I heard you say that before, but thank you for saying that again, because it's like a weighted sandbag, or one of those like weights that, yeah, like I guess it's a sandbag, but I think of it as like a paper weight, and it weighs you down. Mm-hmm. That was that image that came up, like you feel it in your toes, and then you try to take a step and you can't move because it's just like it's you're not allowing it to flow through your body, whether it's through tears or screaming or eating or but you gotta feel it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You gotta feel it, and then realize. Then I recognize that the food that I'm eating that I don't really want is a way of stuffing it too, because then it makes me feel like I've overeaten and I can't move. Mm-hmm. So then I just have to cry and run and jump up and down and scream, and then I feel my toes loosening up again. So thank you for the toe metaphor. It's great.
Yeah, yeah. You know, as you were just saying what you said, I'm sitting in my kitchen, and there's a window in front of me, and a hawk just flew by. And you know, hawks are messengers, right? So I just want to let you know that spirit hears you. That's what I want to let you know. And yeah, it's just interesting timing, although I'm not surprised that a hawk just flew by my kitchen window. So
the messenger.
Yeah, they're messengers for sure. And this is true of many birds, but hawks in particular, they have a larger perspective, right? Because their view is different than ours, us in human bodies, because we can't fly and see, right? Just the expanse of the universe, the landscape, the interconnectedness you spoke about. It's something we have to learn to feel, right? And so I just think that was a little messenger for us that gifted us with their flight by the kitchen window.
Yeah, thank you, Hawk.
Yeah, yeah. I'm wondering if, and I know there are, because everyone's experiencing loss right now, but if there are losses you've experienced related to coronavirus, COVID-19, or just been acutely aware of, like your losses or other people's experience of loss?
Not personally. I mean, I know a lot of people. I was just looking at my contact list, and I was realizing that I know a lot of people. Not that I'm always connected to these people all the time, but because there's so much loss that's happening in the world, and then I go back to the intimate interconnectedness that we all share, even though I don't know these people that died of COVID-19 or an illness that was compromised. And then, because I still believe that people can die other than COVID-19. I mean, I feel like there's this loss of knowing what um, see, what am I trying to say? I mean, just to kind of back up a bit, I don't personally know anyone that has crossed over and died or even suffered from COVID-19 in my life. I have to kind of think about it because I am, I'm getting all these calls from my youngster friends that are 20, 30, 40, and even 50 and asking me if I'm okay and if David's okay and my mom's okay. I'm like, I'm fine. Why are you asking? Like in a way that, like, because you're older. I'm like, oh, that's right. I'm old. I'm a senior. I should be sick. I'm not trying to say this to be, I mean, I have my humor about it because I sometimes forget that I'm 62 and I most of the time feel like I'm 12, but probably because my inner 12-year-old doesn't want me to ever forget her. But my heart feels, my senses feel for the people that have lost people to this virus, and that aches because they've lost somebody that was very close to them. And it's not that much different, Michelle, than someone telling me that someone lost somebody before this happened. So it still reminds me of our interconnectedness. And if one person that I don't know, or 5, 10 people that I don't know lost somebody and are grieving this person's loss, then I'm going to pick up on it too. And I feel for them. I feel a piece of my heart breaks for them. And I wish them well. And since I do Reiki, and that was another thing I forgot to mention in my ritual, I have a Reiki self-practice that I do every morning that helps ground me and allow me to feel that all of my parts. But I send Reiki to the world so we can collectively heal. While we go through our grief patterns, whatever grief patterns people need to go through, they just have to go through it. Back to that the grief question, which is a never-ending question or answer. We just have to keep going through it.
Yeah, what you just shared makes me think of suffering and how our suffering is interconnected. And so that while you have not, personally been affected by this in the sense of you have not lost someone or had someone who's been sick from this in your life, that you can feel the losses other people are experiencing. And I just have to believe that's because your heart is open, even as your heart breaks, what you named, like it's breaking and it's open. And that part of, I think, how we as a collective need to be is to actually feel what you named. Like when there's a loss, someone experiences a loss, we need to understand that we're deeply impacted by that too. And just to allow that to transform how we are and how we show up. So I appreciate you naming that, that you can feel other people's losses, that you're aware that's touching your experience and shaping your experience too.
Yeah, I guess it goes back to that just like me meditation. Even though I haven't experienced it, I can also, but I think that I believe we all have the ability to be empathics and, oh wow, and feel that and connect with it. I feel like kind of go back into that one ancestor's voice that was just kind of talking to me right then, was that we're all part of the whole, like the universe. I think Albert Einstein has this beautiful piece called Tapping into Spring, and I can't remember it verbatim, but it's just about that we're all part of the whole, but then we find ourselves separate from each other, but the whole intention is to break through the prison and find and come back to that interconnectedness. So it's a reminder that okay, this happened, however way it happened, however way it get here, without blaming or judging. Oh, well, this person brought it here. Well, this person brought it here. And it's like going, okay, no, stop that. It's here. How do we take care of each other? How do we take care of ourselves? How do we take care of each other? And I'll just say this quickly because it was something that happened. Again, it isn't really in reference to your question, but
It's fine. That's fine.
but it's I was walking, doing my distancing walk, and I was walking down this particular street, and there was a person about to walk toward me, and they walked out into the street, and at one point we were parallel with each other, and I said hi, and they said hi, and I said I wasn't sure if you were going to cross the street, because if you weren't going to cross the street, I was going to cross the street, and they put their hand on their heart or something, because put their hand on their chest. And they said, well, we have to help each other. And I put my hand on my heart. So kind of like that whole little interaction from a distance reminded me of how when I'm out walking, how acknowledgement, kind of back to something I think I said earlier, while I'm walking, acknowledgement, I'm going to still acknowledge you, even though I can't walk next to you. I'm going to still acknowledge your existence. And but that interaction with that one person turned a corner for me. So it wasn't just, oh, I got to walk into the street. I'm going to walk into the street. Oh, I got to walk into the street. But just like, okay, I'm choosing to walk. They're choosing to walk. And how can I continue to acknowledge this person or these people as I walk out into the street, and then they walk out into the street? How can that acknowledgement keep happening? Can we keep acknowledging each other? And so I guess I just felt like I needed to say that because it was such a powerful message to have this person parallel with me and put their hand on my chest and my hand on my chest, and realize that we're all in this together and we need to help each other.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And so there's like a stark contrast in that story and what I've been experiencing when I go to the grocery store, which I go once a week. And where like people are wearing masks and people are trying to get out of each other's way, and connection and intimacy is so different right now. And so what you described sounds like a moment of connection and intimacy. Like, I see you, you see me, we are in this together, what you just named. And I think that's just, it's really helpful to hear because, every time I go out to the grocery store and come back, I'm like unsettled. And that's actually anxiety, and feeling unsettled is not my norm. Like, I will go more to like sorrow and despair, not overstimulation. But going out has felt really overstimulating. And so it's just a nice reminder that there are these moments where we're actually trying to figure out ways to connect that are meaningful and heartfelt. That is happening at the same time as we're having moments where maybe we're feeling overstimulated, or we don't know how to connect, or there's so much disconnection that we're noticing. So I appreciate you sharing that story.
Yeah, and that disconnection, I mean, I'll be in the store, and there'll be, on one level, I have to put my bubble around me so I don't pick up other people's, but also sometimes there's a pop in my bubble that lets that get in. And I go, okay, yeah, I feel you. You want to get in and out of the store. Somebody's in the way of the mushrooms. You're waiting for them to get their mushrooms so you can get your mushrooms. And it's like this big lesson in learning how to wait and having patience, which has so much to do with the yoga practice. It's like learning how to wait and wait for it. But the human nature is, I'm impatient. I want it now. I want my mushrooms now. Get out of my way. It's like, oh, okay, I'm noticing this person, or I'm feeling kind of anxious because this other person's anxious. Oh, I'm picking up on, there's a domino effect of anxiousness all happening here at the grocery store. Oh, go outside, shake it off. But it's not like something you can just shake it off like having a bad customer day. It's something a little much deeper than that. And that's, again, grief comes back in. Oh, wow, they're grieving. And the way they're acting with grief maybe is hoarding the mushrooms and not letting anyone else get into the mushrooms. So it's a way of seeing someone with, again, without trying to put judgment on them, but just kind of going, wow, like back in January, was this happening at the grocery store? No. So anyway, so
Hmm.
I moved away from the subject, but we know this about me now. I move away from subjects, and it's okay.
But it's all connected. What we're
All
talking about the
connected.
same thing. It's
It's
all
all
connected.
connected. Yes,
Yeah.
it's all.
I think, well, I have two more questions. One is, you named some practices and rituals that you're turning towards right now that maybe you've always practiced, right? To keep yourself centered and grounded. And I wonder if there are others that you want to name, because I think sometimes when we name rituals and practices, they can help other people, right? They can support other people. So are there any other rituals you want to name and share?
Let's see. Well, I talked about meditation, so I have a Reiki practice every morning. Um, I do. I have my sitting meditation practice. I have my gazing at my favorite tree, because I have this amazing, very full-rooted tree outside of my window, which reminds me to stay grounded and guided and grateful and find grace. So I kind of sometimes say that throughout the day. That's a ritual for me. I often say the serenity prayer throughout the day, because I believe the serenity prayer of grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, the wisdom to know the difference. I feel like that is such a powerful prayer, and it just keeps me centered. I have my asana practice, which has lately been kind of, I do it with myself. I know there's a lot of Zoom yoga classes, and I support that. I just feel very intimate with my practice. And it's shifted a little bit. And last week, I mean, I also like music and I love dancing. So last week I had a really fun dance party with myself. And I've been having dance parties with myself. And I was really amazed how Spotify, and again, I don't, me and technology, um, and I say that kind of laughing like, but I was like, Spotify said, we have a new playlist for you, Mary. And I'm like, wow, how do they know what I like? I mean, again, just kind of like this innocence of my inner 12-year-old. In this case, I think it was more like an inner 5-year-old. And had all like some of my favorite songs. So I was doing my asana practice, and then this kind of a funky asana Zumba type thing. And I just started moving and felt great. And I felt like just a lot of alive in my body. And movement is a ritual for me, which is one of the reasons I love walking and hiking and being outside. I mean, it's very different right now. And my extroverted self is kind of going a little crazy because nobody will talk to me. In Seattle, there's something called the Seattle freeze. And right now it's kind of like the Arctic freeze, because nobody is really not talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
And we're already people not talking to you because of whatever Kool-Aid people have been drinking in Seattle. But, and it's not Seattle's fault. It's just kind of like this energy where everybody's on their phones or everybody's somewhere. So, the rituals are even just that, the ritual of knowing that it's not about me, and keeping my breath going and keeping my, and the ritual of even what I said earlier about falling apart, that I get to fall apart. Last week I had a wacky Wednesday and I binge watched a Netflix thing, and I went, okay, I guess this is what we're doing today. Are we going to throw me under a bus? Well, we already did that. Let's pull myself from under the bus and brush myself off and say, that was okay. That was okay. And so then I start again. I just have to keep reminding myself to begin again. So the ritual practice is, an ongoing, let's stop and take that next breath.
Mm-hmm.
And like the sun is out, and everyone in Seattle is really always excited when the sun is out. And I don't feel that same excitement because the sun is out, because where the sun is out, nature is doing its thing. The tulips are out. Jasmine is, out. The daffodils are doing their thing. Allergies are driving people crazy. But there's not that laughter in the air right now. It's like there's a fog. There's the COVID-19 fog that affects all of us. So then how important it is to have excuse me, that ritual of come back, just keep coming back, which is another thing they they say in different programs. It's just keep coming back to your breath, keep coming back to what you know. Let the tears happen when the tears happen. Let the frustration happen. Let it happen, so you can wiggle your toes and move through your toes and make that next movement. So, and last Wednesday, I didn't dance. I didn't walk. I didn't have my ritual asana. I felt like crap, but I also went, okay, all right, I had to do that. And I'm not gonna, I know how that made me feel, and my toes could not move, and I was not grounded. Um, and and giving us permission, or giving myself permission, and my friends permission when they experience something like that, that it's okay. We've never experienced anything like that. So if you end up eating a whole cake and you drink a whole bottle of wine, shit, it happened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's going to continue happening until it stops happening. And then we're going to have a whole nother paradigm of how we're going to show up and be in the world.
Yeah.
And the ancestors say, this is what I've been trying to tell y'all. I've been trying to tell y'all, you need a new paradigm. Nobody's listening. I'm like, I hear you very faintly. It's like this little faint voice. What? You need to do what differently? What? Oh, what? They're not broadcasting that on the news. That's something really different. So that's why ritual is so important. Come back to ritual, come back to grief, come back to listening to the voices of our ancestors saying. They're very quiet. Sometimes that voice is so quiet you have to like, it'll happen if I walk by a tree, or it'll happen by, it's just like, what? Oh, kindness. Oh, right. Okay. Right. Okay.
Mm. That's so beautiful. Just your offering and the reminder that the ancestors have been speaking to us for a long time, and part of our practice needs to be listening to their wisdom and then responding, right, based on what we hear from them. So I'm grateful that you named that. And my last question wasn't on the list, but it's what I want to ask. And it is just, if you think about this present moment we're in, you and I right now, what lesson is COVID-19 or coronavirus teaching you? Like in this very present moment, what is like one lesson that you're learning?
I think I probably already named it, Michelle, which comes back to listening. I would say listening, and that that intimate interconnectedness that we're all, Al Jarreau had a song, and I think his song was called "We're in This Love Together," but I'm like, I would change the words, which I often change lyrics around anyway. We're all in this together. So that lesson is a continual lesson for me when I get bumped up against maybe somebody else's stagnant grief that they're not grieving. And I just kind of have to go, okay, oh wow, they're not in their place right now, or maybe that's how they need to be in their place right now, and just to keep remembering, which is interesting because that's the rock that I pulled, that I got from our retreat last June, was the remember, and I grab that rock sometimes for me to remember to listen. And there's a Sweet Honey in the Rock song called Breaths.
Yeah.
And I've been listening to that lately, and the wisdom of what they're singing about with the ancestors, and the breath that comes through us. So that's kind of a long answer to the I mean, it's kind of everything I've been saying, because it's about learning how to, that lesson is to keep listening, keep breathing, and it's okay that we don't have it all together now, because we don't know what we're doing, because this is a whole new chapter that nobody has ever experienced before. So nobody has to have the answers, because we're so used to being these, speak for myself, this, I know this. It's like, no, you don't know this, but what you do know is to keep remembering. If you would ask me this question 4 months ago, would I say the same thing? Maybe not. But I do know that intimate interconnectedness is what I believe in, and that we're all here to do something. And if we move our egos and all of our crap out of the way, we actually can see each other and not to see the crap, you know?
Well, thank you for your time today, and thank you for saying yes to this conversation, and just for all of the gifts you bring forth in this world, on this planet. And I love you dearly, and I'm so glad you're in my life. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Michelle. I love you dearly too. And yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing time with me this morning. I appreciate our interconnection.
Me too.
You are your beating heart. Ready, crack open, wide open. So